Hi, this is Sam Lagana with the Los Angeles Rams. Whose house? You're listening to the Los Angeles Rams UK podcast. Undenied worldwide. The Los Angeles Rams. It doesn't get any better than this. Let's go Rams!
Good evening, welcome to another edition of the LA Rams UK podcast, episode 112. The escalator is thataway. And joining me this evening is Andy and Lewis. How you doing, guys?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Yourself?
I'm pretty happy, to be honest.
I wonder why. There was something strange happened this week. I don't know what it was, though.
I don't know what it was. So, how are you, Lewis, actually? How you doing?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Had a good week, bragging about it to all the guys at work. So yeah, gone pretty well.
And in case you've been living under a rock, we're obviously here to talk about the Rams coming back versus them to win 27-24 this week at SoFi. Before we dive into it, guys, initial thoughts on the game. Andy, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic to get the win. Team showed a lot of resilience when, even at half time, I thought the game was over and done with. But, there are some questions that I think I'll highlight throughout that still need to be answered within the team. But always happy to get a win against that lot.
Lewis, what's your initial thoughts on the game?
Pretty similar, to be honest. I think there's definitely a lot to work on, but you've got to take a win at the end of the day, especially against them. And there was a lot of bright sparks. Matthew Stafford, that might have been the best game I've seen him have, especially without Puka and Cup out there as well. So I think there was a lot of bright sparks, but like Andy said, a lot to work on.
Yep. So my initial thoughts on it was that the last time when we beat them, they were full of, but you were playing against our reserves, like, doesn't count. Says, well, yeah, but we played against most of your starters, and we beat you again. So what's the excuse now, guys? Did the escalators not get you out of the stadium fast enough? Is that
exactly. Their excuse last time, it was our reserves. That's great, but we played our reserves as well. We had Wentz as our quarterback, for God's sake. It wasn't as if, it was our first team either. So they're just excuses, mate. And at the end of the day, there's no excuses this time. There'll probably be the usual excuses. Oh, we didn't have Kittle, we didn't have McCaffrey. Okay, that's great. We didn't have Cup, we didn't have Puka.
Yep.
It's the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And we had a defense that last week gave up over 40 points.
Yeah.
So what does that say about you guys, that you can't put up those kind of points against us, but the Cardinals can?
Yeah, it just brings into questions. They're not as talented as they think they are this year, and without, they are definitely a one-man team where no McCaffrey, and they seem to do struggle at times. Defensively, they're not the same team they were a few years ago either.
Yeah. Just looking at initial stats, we only put 296 yards, up in total offense compared to 425 of theirs. So, it's great from our perspective that we got, we scored 27 points off of barely any yards. It's basically averages out nearly a point every 10 yards we've gained compared to them putting up over 400 yards. They nearly had as many passing yards as we had total offense yards, and they couldn't put us away. Now, I'm saying that kind of gloating, but to be quite honest, the first half, though, guys, wasn't the best watching, and I don't know about you guys, but I was pretty much on the verge of going, I'm calling this because I can't see how we're coming back from this, and I'm glad I didn't turn the game off. Put it that way. Did you guys think in the first half that this is just one way, this is one direction? This?
Yeah, I thought when we went 14-0 down, I thought, oh, here we go again. It's them again, and it's the Cardinals game all over again. This is over. And I think you even saw on Discord, I said, yeah, I think I'm just going to quieten down for the night, or I'll have to ban myself on here because I'll go into a tirade.
Yeah. What about you, Lewis? Did you feel in the first half that this is just going to be one-way traffic? This?
I was trying to be as positive as possible and just kind of enjoy everything going on as much as I could. But yeah, I did have I had the feeling, and then I actually did take myself up to bed when I'm not sure if you guys remember, but Kyron had a sort of fumble that was called back. But I was watching it live, and as soon as I saw him fumble and then more celebrating, I went straight up to bed and then checked my phone before I went to sleep and saw that it got called back. So then watched it in bed for the rest of the game, thankfully.
So in terms of we'll start with the offense side of it. In terms of the offense performance, Stafford was 16-25 for 221 with 1 touchdown. Kyren Williams was 24 carries for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tutu Atwell, 4 receptions for 93 yards, which is pretty impressive. DeMarcus Robinson 1 for 32. Again, he's spreading the ball about quite a bit, but in terms of offense, Lewis, I'll come to you first. Who would you highlight as being like a standout? Because something obviously changed at half time. There was something that was said or some adjustment surely was made to this offense to get it going. Is it down to Stafford or was it someone else, do you think, in the offense?
I think there's two. I think you've got to point out Stafford. I've seen so many clips of him calling audibles and pointing out blitzers and all sorts and sorting the O-line out and talking to his running backs. I've seen clips of Ronnie Rivers being brilliant in pass protection as well. But I think the other guy that's not getting a lot of plaudits is Alaric Jackson at left tackle. I thought he was absolutely magnificent against Bosa. And I think I saw a stat line that Bosa had 1 tackle and that was about it all game. And I think having that presence at left tackle just gave Stafford that bit of calmness in the pocket a bit more than he's had the last couple of weeks. Yeah. I think that really, really helped us on offense.
Yeah, just checking the stats. You are right, Nick Bosa only managed 1 tackle and 1 assist they managed, which is pretty good going considering like the type of player he is. So yeah, no, absolutely credit to Alaric Jackson, the offensive line. Andy, what about yourself? In terms of offensive performances, who would you highlight?
To be honest, I was going to highlight myself, Alaric Jackson, for how well he did. Coming back in, he kept both Boyser and Leonard Floyd fairly quiet all game, and the pressure was coming via the interior. So it was nice to see him back out there, and he seemed ready to go. He didn't seem rusty or anything, which was good. But you've got to give Atwell a bit of credit as well. He had that bobbled drop. And it was kind of like, could have took his confidence away, but he kept going. And, I think on 2 of his catches, he had to catch it 4 times before he actually got hold of it, and he kept that perseverance, even if the ball was slightly behind him from Stafford and he managed to palm it back to himself and then catch it, so credit where credit's due to him as well. He stepped up when we needed him to have that big game and, kept us going.
Well, and with Atwell, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, this is basically a contract year for him, isn't it? That this is basically for him if he wants to stay on the Rams. This is his year to prove something, if I'm not mistaken there.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is his 4th year.
Yeah, so I think with obviously Cup and Nakua out, like a performance such as that on Sunday, like is going to do him plenty of favours for if he wants to win himself a new deal.
I think as well it fires the rest of the team up, and it also fired the fans up because a couple of them, they were pretty. I think one of them was 50 yards or something.
Yeah, it was a bomb.
That play, I think really fired the home crowd back up again. And you did notice after that the crowd seemed to get more into the game, which is sometimes what you need as well.
And just on the topic of the crowd, but like you said, it was noticeable with that Atwell reception, but considering there was quite a number of them in there, there's quite a few videos I've seen since. Like I don't think there was as many of them as there usually was because our fans sounded, pretty loud compared to what they usually are. Do you guys think that had an effect on the players? Because obviously in the last few years, a lot of these guys will be going out in the SoFi and all they're hearing is them, basically.
I think you could still hear at times a lot more of them than us at times. That's just the way it's going to be, I think, for a number of years. At times it looked like, the O-line was doing the, silent count, which is traditionally what you do at home rather than away rather than at home. So there was still a lot, but I think we just kept the team kept them quiet enough, especially, after their first touchdown in the third quarter. They didn't do anything else, and that allowed us to get, we started to pick up and get back into the game. And I think that just allowed them to shut up and allow our fans to get their voices heard as well.
Yeah. Lewis, in terms of like the games we have against them, as we discussed last week, it's usually quite a ground and pounds type of game. But whilst this one didn't seem to kind of follow that narrative, how did you find Kyren Williams' overall performance on the ground? Like 2 touchdowns, 89 yards, but just gathering your thoughts on the running game.
I thought he was brilliant as always. He was brilliant in pass protection as well for Stafford whenever he needed him. The one thing I'd like is just to take his workload off a little bit. I'm not sure why Blake Corum isn't getting any looks at all, but did you say he had 24 carries? I think it was
24 for 89, yeah.
I wouldn't really want him to be having 24 every single week while Blake Corum's having none on the sidelines. But yeah, he's playing brilliantly and scoring touchdowns. I think that's 6 games in a row he's had touchdowns for us now. So yeah, no complaints at all. I'm just worried that if he carries on the way he's going, he might pick up an injury. But saying that, he's no longer our punt returner. Thank the Lord.
We'll go on and have a punt return in a second. But yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. We've got Blake Corum there, and then we've got, obviously, as I call him, the Rocket, Ronnie Rivers, who, on a trick play, got us a first down. So whilst Williams is our number one, I do agree that, like, the Rams seem to operate better when we play a kind of split back kind of like role where we've got them rotating in and out, because as good as Williams was for us last year and as good as he is for us, I guess, to be on our RB1, like you said, Lewis, all it takes is for an injury and then our running game's gone to shot. So I would personally like to see the likes of Rivers and Corum getting rotations and getting carries, just so that it takes the pressure off of Williams. Because
I think the problem is
it's in the end zone. But sorry, Andy, on you go.
I think the problem is a lot of the time I don't think McVay trusts rookie running backs. Williams came in his first year. He didn't let him. He barely saw the field. I don't know what it is with McVay. He never seems to trust rookie running backs. Whether that's because he wants them to have a year to get used to everything, get used to because he likes a lot of pass protection out of his running backs to help out or what have you. I don't know what it is. He just doesn't ever seem to give the guys any trust. I do think we may not see a lot, unfortunately, of Corum until next year.
Well, that's what happened with Williams, because he didn't play. It was 2 seasons ago we drafted him. He didn't get a single snap his first year, and a lot of people were asking where Kyren Williams was, and it wasn't until last year, and it wasn't even at the start of the year, right enough. It was because of Cam Akers and his kind of poor performances and fumbles that McVay was obviously like, well, I may as well give Williams a shot. And then, like, it just kind of like exploded out of nowhere, especially when he's like running for like over 140 yards against Arizona. Like, so yeah, there's definitely something there, Andy. I do agree with that McVay, I'm not saying he doesn't trust rookies, but he's reluctant to throw them in. I think that's probably kind of a fair one to make. But you want to make a point about McVay, Andy?
Yeah, his adaptability this week. He's gone from basically running 11 personnel every single week, to a hell of a lot more 12 personnel, 2 tight ends and the running back, which I think did help the team a lot this week, and it's nice to see that McVay has sort of gone, right, I don't have the personnel at the moment to do my classic 11 personnel, where he can use Kupp and Nakua as sort of that quasi tight end wide receiver to help with the blocking. So he's gone, well, stuff it. I'm just going to have to put my 2 tight ends in to get that extra blocking and then, finagle the offense around that. And it's nice to see that he has adapted himself to the situation at the moment, rather than in years past, it's felt like McVay's gone, well, that's my plan. I'm sticking to it no matter what. He's now like I say, adapting more to the situation, and it's good to see that from him. It's like another evolution of him. He's finally sort of settled down and is learning himself that he's going to have to change just to keep the team going while we are suffering injuries like we have at the moment.
Yeah, and like I said, like compared the first half compared to the second half, something definitely changed in half time. There was some kind of adjustment there because it was a different team that came out the second half. There was confidence there, and we were willing to go for it. It was almost as if like they were like, quite frank, fuck it, what we got to lose? Let's just go for it. Let's just go for them.
Yeah, I think obviously we'll come to it, but I think a lot of it as well was more adjustments on the defense, which allowed the offense to stay out a little bit more. And they weren't all of a sudden, chasing massive, gaps which were going to be impossible, which allowed McVay to then get back to his game plan of more running the ball rather than having to, we're going to have to just keep passing because we need to try and play catch up again.
Well, let's switch over to the defense there. But the first thing I'll kind of go with the flow, right? The game first half was a bit negative, and that's we'll start there because I pronounce his first name right. I'm just going to call him Juan Jennings. 175 yards off of 11 receptions. He was absolutely ripping us to shreds the first half. And the likes of Roseboom and Reader just couldn't contain him. Highlighting further that our main issues that I feel with our defence lie in that linebacking core. However, that was the first half. Like you're touching upon, Andy, there that the defence was keeping them on the field long, like was basically keeping them at bay, basically, pretty much. When I look at the stats, Troy Reader is it was tied for the highest amount of tackles, all things considered. Where do you guys think we got? Well, right, longer question, right? Given how bad the defense was against the Cardinals, what do you guys both? I'll ask you individually. What did you guys feel like we did better this week in the defense to get over that? What do you feel changed this week? We'll start with Lewis. Sorry.
I think it was looking bleak in the first half. I think it was exactly the same sort of things happening like we saw against Marvin Harrison, and Juwan Jennings was just absolutely going over the top of us and just tearing us to pieces. But then second half, we seemed to go back to the sort of Raheem Morris and even Brandon Staley, that sort of defense where we kind of contained them a little bit and just dropped back and didn't allow that deep shot. And then Brandon Ayuk didn't particularly look himself, and everyone was expecting him to have a big game. So we kind of kept everything in front of us, which seemed to make everything so much better for us. Especially, I think second half, we had so many more pressures on Purdy. I think Fisk and Kobe Turner from the interior combined for about 12 pressures between them. I think the change to a bit more containment in the second half really helped us, especially Trey White at corner, who didn't have the greatest of first halves against Jennings, to say the least.
Andy, where do you think it went right on the defense?
A bit like Lewis touched on, I think, we sort of like, okay, let's just make sure they don't get these big, massive plays. We'll, sit back, let them, they're going to have to dink and dunk on us. We kind of felt like second half, we brought a lot more bigger personnel on the defensive line. So we did see a lot more Bobby Brown and Tyler Davis, to sort of, instead of, it being Fisk, Brown and Kobe Turner, we sort of like, okay, we need to put a few bigger bodies in. And once we sort of started to shut the run down a little bit better, I felt like things were starting, because then you're starting to put it on Purdy's arm, which, while it is okay, isn't exactly the best in the world, and that helped us. And let's say, seemed to be second half as well. I don't know, that Trey White seemed to just change. It seemed first half, it was very much like Cardinals game. It was like, oh my God, this guy's just burnt out, toast, he's useless, the injuries have killed him.
Yeah.
Second half, he seemed to, I'm not going to say he was back to his old pro self, but he seemed a bit more like himself. He was stickier in coverage. He wasn't giving up big plays, you know, and that I think also, as I said, helped a lot to contain things. And they had to start then moving players around to sort of get, you know, Jennings away from him to try and give him the chances to make plays. You know, in second half, he seemed to be sticking more on Ayuk and keeping Ayuk quiet, which was good to see.
Yeah, I mean, Jennings was obviously, I mean, the stats speak for themselves, but Jennings was the main threat for them. Like even on the ground rushing, like Jordan Mason was 77 yards off 19, Purdy was 41 off 10, and Guerrero was 19 off 5. Like, going back to what I said, like defensively, I think like the line did very well to prevent the ground and pound that we've became accustomed to them to perhaps experience against him. Having McCaffrey out obviously really went in favour of that because the kind of you say he plays for them, right? But like McCaffrey is, you know, he's a phenomenal running back, and like having someone out there like for the ground and pound offense they kind of like go with against us on the run. Because let's be honest, it's never really you never really see it as a passing game when we play against them. They like to hold the ball for as long as possible. Because I think in the first quarter, in fact, I think they had the ball for like I think I counted as a good maybe about 11 or 12 minutes in that first quarter. They had the ball, so they'd like to get possession, keep possession, but just slowly work their way up and eat that clock up. But our defense was basically in the second half, especially, was preventing that from happening, which then gave us our offense the confidence to go out and just attack them. I think what you're saying, Andy, like the offensive line, like sorry, no offensive line, sorry, the defensive line, I would agree is where this defense got it right because it made Purdy, sorry, go to there. And like I said last week, he's a short to medium range passer. He's not a deep man.
No, he is very much that intermediate. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, but you know, one thing that I know people trying to be positive on defense. One thing that still worries me is the amount of missed tackles on defense and the amount of players that are just, you know, I
Yeah.
think both Fisk and Vers, they could have had a few sacks each, but they just seemed to steam. They were overcommitting and going past the guy. You know,
There was a few ones in the first half that they were just falling over. They were breaking free of the block and then they were just falling.
Yeah, and there was a few others where, you know, that they're just out of reach because they're just over committing to, I've got to get the quarterback, go. And they're sort of, they're getting, but they're giving themselves too much momentum to then sort of, they're overshooting the quarterback, which you may as well not be there. It's pointless you being there. So, you know, there's still that needs to be cleaned. You know, there is stuff that needs to be cleaned up. You know, and I know we knock him, but I don't think Troy Reader had a bad game this week. He had flashes of, oh my God, what the heck is he doing? But he also had flashes this week of, okay, actually, he looks like a solid linebacker a few times. You know, he did do a few things right. So, you know,
definitely as the game gone, I'm highly critical of Reader, and as you know, but like I have to admit, as the game got on, something just seemed to click for him, and he was making some important stops as the game got on.
You know, so, but like I say, there is still a lot on the defense to clean up. I'm still not convinced Shula is the right guy for the job. It may just be a case. I think we've gone through, you know, almost personally myself, I'd like to see a complete change of defensive coordinator and maybe bring somebody in with a different place style on defense rather than what we're currently running with. Because this was great when you had an Aaron Donald in the middle who could, you know, do everything, take up everything and take the attention. But I'm worried now that we don't have somebody like him in the middle, that this isn't the sort of defense that's going to work for us with the players we've got anymore.
Fair enough. Lewis, coming to you. So there's about 52 seconds to go. 49ers, them, are punting. Xavier Smith is back, receives it, returns it for 18 yards. What was your thoughts at that return? And did you think that Christ, we're actually going to win this game at that point?
I mean, honestly, no. I have no faith in any of my sports teams, and I just thought we were going to throw it away somehow, some way. But yeah, I was so happy for him. I thought he deserved a roster spot at the start of the year, to be honest. From all the reports from preseason camp and from the preseason games, he looked like the bright spark and always looked like the best punt returner. And especially when Sean McVay said that Kyron was going to be our punt returner, I just didn't really get it. Especially carrying Tyler Johnson and Tutu. I didn't really see the point of carrying both of them. I mean, now we're at a point where we've lost Puka and Cup. It does kind of make sense, but at that point in time, I didn't really see it. So I was really happy for him, and he changed the game, to be fair to him, yeah.
Cool. Is there anyone else, guys, that you feel like deserves a mention for the performance for the Rams this week?
I think two things we need to highlight. One is that fake punt that I think was the game changer for me. I think that changed the game on its head because we're not notorious, certainly since we've, the Hecker
We've had
days.
a Haker, aye.
Yeah,
you're right, actually.
we don't really run trick plays on special teams. And, you've got to give a shout out as well to Josh Carty. Pressure situation as a rookie. I know everyone says, oh, it's a kicker. But that is still, a big pressure situation at home, wanting your first win against, the biggest rival team. He could have easily have fluffed that with the nerves, but he didn't. He just smacked it and was true. And, special teams throughout, punter, long snapper, kicker, seems solid at the moment. And it seems like, obviously, it's still early days, but we seem to have got a solid base.
Yeah. Yep. What would you think about that, Lewis? Like, well, obviously last year we had so many issues with the kicking. Had to chop and change. Ever since we lost Matt Gay, it's been a limbo season for kickers. Do you feel like Carty looks like he's potentially a good fit to be our kicker going forward? Hopefully long term.
I hope so. He seems like not only a really good kicker, but a good personality to have around the team, to be honest, from all the videos I've seen of him. The fact that I don't think he hardly practiced all week and then went out and kicked the game-winning field goal. I think you've got to give him so much praise for that, just to hold his nerve as a rookie kicker. I think I'm right in saying that he hasn't missed a field goal yet.
No, he's not missed a single one. Just looking at his stats.
Have you got his longest kick of the season there?
Let me just check. His longest one at the weekend there was 39. His longest so far in the regular season is 41 against the Lions.
Yeah.
One.
That was going to be my only worry, is that we've not seen him kick from distance yet. So I'm not going to say I'm fully set on him, but I'm definitely liking what I'm seeing so far. Yeah.
Yeah, because like both of you guys have touched upon, he is a rookie at the end of the day, and to go out there and have to kick what was the game-winning field goal does at least give us some confidence that he can handle that pressure. But I think Lewis is right there that we've not seen him kick. And when you say from distance, you're talking the 50 plus. Can he put it away from 50 and upwards? Because those are the proper, game-winning distances. And I think you know yourself, guys, when you watch the game and you see the red line, here's the field goal target line. It's like we don't quite know just yet where that line is with Carty. It's just a rough guess. So it's still early days to kind of see just how clutch he could be as a kicker. But all things considered, it's been a good start so far.
It is early days. I will say his longest career, including his college career, is 61 yards, which is the second longest in Pac-12 history. So he does have a leg on him. I will say that the guy does have a leg. 61 yarder is pretty damn good, even in college level. I know everyone says, well, it's college, but kicking is kicking. It doesn't matter whether you kick it in college or the NFL. It's the same process. It's not as if it's any different. So he does clearly have the leg. But I think this sort of shows that as much as the offense has sucked, we're not getting into situations where we are at least getting close enough where we are giving them easy chip
Yeah.
shot field goals, But like I say, he does have a leg. And it's just a case of we just got to wait and see when he comes up to it. But
When I was just bringing up his stats there, ESPN's got an interesting set of stats. So what they've actually got under him is a projection of what they think his kicking stats will be this year. He's 100%, which is great, right? But just as we're talking here, guys, they don't actually project that he will kick once over 50 yards. They reckon he'll kick 6 times and meet all six from between 40 and 49, 11 times between 30 and 39, 11 times between 20 and 29, and they don't reckon he'll kick within the red zone at all. So it's interesting to see, I've never actually seen that against a kicker before, but it's interesting to see where, an analyst is kind of sees him in terms of kicker, that they think that he's not necessarily, well, like you said, he's long, he's got obviously a record there at 61 yards, so he must have a leg on him. But like the projection of stats is they see that it's not necessarily, well, he's not electing to kick, I guess, for 50 yards, but they reckon that our offense is good enough to keep him within a comfortable range to give him solid stats.
yeah, ESPN do some weird projection thing.
Yeah, I've never seen that against a kicker before. It's almost like I thought I was on a fantasy football page at first, because it's weird to see a projection of what they think someone's going to do over the course of the year. But just as we wrap up the game, guys, Lewis, favourite moment from the game?
Oh, there's quite a few, but I've got to give a shout out to that picture after the game of Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan with Sean McVay's hand on the top of his head. That picture just put a massive, massive smile on my face, and I absolutely loved it. The face that Kyle Shanahan is pulling is unbelievable. It was brilliant.
Andy, favourite moment from the game?
Watching all the Wireless fans going to the escalator.
I was going to say that myself as well. I think it was Pink Nightmare on Twitter. People were actually asking her. I seen the tweets. Please go to the escalators, and she actually left her seat to go to the escalators and videoed. And then, but as she was leaving, she was videoing going out, and the silence was deafening. It was just
Yeah, but other than that, apart from that, I'd probably say, to be honest, the fake punt, because it's just
fake punt was definitely
that for me seemed to spark the team to life.
Yep. For me, that bomb to Atwell, because I love seeing Stafford making those throws, and all the kind of talk about Stafford's getting to the end of his career, he's not really got the arms there. He's still got the arm. And it's great to see him. You know if you threw that to Cup or Nakur, they're catching it any day of the week. But it's good to see him doing it to someone else on the roster to show to people it doesn't matter who's downfield, I'll find them.
So, yeah, exactly. And the fact that, like you said earlier, Tuso had that drop earlier. Stafford could have gone, yeah, okay, that's it. I'm not throwing to you again. But he persevered with them. And like you say, even throughout the game, you could see Stafford, Tyler Johnson, he's coaching him. I wanted you to do this instead. He's still trying to keep, guys he's not had much time with. He's still trying to train them and keep them, to get them thinking how he's thinking, to help the team, which is good to see from, a guy who, people have said is struggling to connect with the team because of the massive age gap. It's nice to see him, he's almost acting like a coach out there during the game as well, directing everything. So it's good to see that from him.
Yep. So moving on to elsewhere in the league, Lewis, did you catch any of the other games this week?
Yeah, I was watching Red Zone as per on the Sunday. But other than the main games, I thought the Bengals-Washington game, I mean, Jaden Daniels just looked absolutely incredible. I don't want to compare him to Caleb Williams, but the difference in the starts that they've had has been just so incredibly different. And everyone was saying how brilliant of a situation Caleb Williams was going into, and it just seemed as though Jaden Daniels has settled in so much better than he has. Other than that, I mean, Panthers winning their first game 36-22 against the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders are pretty bad, but I mean, what does that say about Bryce Young, to be honest? Not looking great from his perspective.
No, when Andy Dalton comes in and makes your offense look competent, it's kind of it must be for the Panthers a bit of a worry that Bryce Young is not the guy everyone thought he was going to be.
Nope. And I mean, as you're touching upon, Lewis, is Caleb Williams the guy that everyone thought he could be when Jaden Daniels is, coming up a better start? But I think it's just one of those ones that it's still early days. I guess that's only the third week and the third game he's played in the NFL. But I think people were expecting, Williams to light up the league. When they talked about how this is a generational talent, but I seen and talk about generational talents. Another one that was mentioned is Trevor Lawrence, and I think I actually seen someone compare him to Daniel Jones, if I'm not mistaken, in his stats. For length of time, Lawrence has been in the league equals what Daniel Jones's stats are in the league. So the whole people going on about generational talents, I think that kind of stigma is totally washed up. Get the guys that you're not expecting to come in the league and light it up, or lighten up, and the guys you are expecting to come in are just likely to fall away into obscurity.
Personally, I think with Trevor Lawrence, that 1 year under Urban Meyer just completely wrecked him. But yeah. I don't care who you are. You could be, Tom Brady. I think if you had Urban Meyer as your head coach, it'd break you. Anybody, that guy was just a fraud. I do think that probably broke him.
Yeah. Did you catch any games, Andy?
I sort of just watched Red Zone and a few highlights. Got to say, Sam Darnold for MVP, anyone? The way he's got Minnesota going at the moment. The guy is balling out. It was like, he's probably going to be the backup to JJ McCarthy, and so far, he's got the Vikings playing really well, and it's kind of again another 400-yard 4 touchdowns it was performance out of the guy. It's kind of like, oh my god, what is going on here?
4 touchdowns off only 181 yards.
Yeah, I think he's got 800 yards or something throughout this so far this season.
He's putting the points on the board. Doesn't matter how many yards. At the end of the day, he's able to put the points on the board.
Well, he's tied he's first for overall touchdowns out of all QBs. We expected this at the end of the season, at the beginning of the season. So, other than that, Jets thumping New England. It kind of looks like Aaron Rodgers is unfortunately slowly coming back. And Malik Willis for Green Bay. You'd have thought, you were like, oh, Green Bay's washed without Jordan Love, and he's come in and he kind of looked fairly decent himself. There's a lot of potential backups who, maybe next year might be getting a few looks at potentially contracts. And, for Minnesota, if Sam Darnold can keep playing the way he is, he's only on a 1-year deal. It's kind of, actually, do we go with McCarthy in the unknown, or do we pay Darnold and keep him? So, they could be in for a bit of an interesting discussion come the end of the year. If it could, obviously early days, but if it continues.
Well, it's interesting to see how the other games. The Steelers are obviously surprising people as well. They're 3-0.
Yeah, I was going to say Justin Fields kind of looks competent, which is something the words never thought. Potentially, again, they've got a situation now. Do they give it back to Russell Wilson or do they run with the hot hand in Justin Fields?
I think, to be honest with you, Wilson's time in the league is done. The farce of his time with the Broncos, and now moved over to the Steelers. They named him starting quarterback, and then they go, actually, no, we're not going to we're going to put Justin Fields as starting quarterback. He's on the way out now.
And even we're going back to the rookie QBs. Even the Broncos, beat the Bucs this week, and Bo Nix looked, I'm going to say he set the league on fire, but he looked competent at least. And even he looks better at the moment than Caleb Williams does.
Well, that's it, yeah. Yeah, 25 for 36 and 216 yards, yeah. But so the Seahawks again, like doing well. They 24-3 against the Dolphins. I mean, granted, they scored most of their points in the first quarter, but they held the Dolphins to 3 points the whole game.
Yeah, you got to remember though, that isn't the Dolphins. They've got no Tua, and even their second string quarterback went down with a rib injury. That's
Very
not.
true. Yeah, Skylar Thompson and Tim Boyle.
Their season starts this week against the Lions, because the first 3 weeks they've had cupcake teams. It's basically been an extended preseason for them, and I think with their competition, and now I think it
the
starts.
Patriots are like in their division, like they still, they could still be all. This could be still all right. I mean, the Bills, saying that right enough, the Bills are 3-0 as well, but I think the Bills have had a quite straightforward to start this season. I mean, they're the Jags this week, 47-10. But then again, the Bills are like this every year, aren't they, guys? That they look absolutely
Josh
hot,
Allen.
and then Josh Allen looks absolutely like on fire, and then it just falls to shit. Really.
I don't know. I feel this year the Bills are a little bit more balanced. I'm not being horrible simply because Stephon Diggs isn't there going, I want the ball 10 times a game. And I think Allen also kind of alluded to that in his press conference, where he's like, players are basically, whether you get the ball once or 10 times, they're just happy to be playing. And I think it was kind of a little bit of a dig that things seem a bit more harmonious in that locker room compared to what it was when he was around. But like I say, early days, but there has been some sort of teams you weren't expecting to do well, doing well, and teams you're expecting to.
Yeah,
even the likes of the Eagles
this year so far. Yeah, like you're saying, Andy.
they're just scraping.
And
I've
then
got to say,
we come to who are sorry, on you go, Andy.
you have to say, if you were the Cleveland Browns, you think it's time to bench certain who for Jameis Winston, because that guy just looks like a complete waste of space. And now he's saying this week that he's not even going to run. Oh, people are saying, oh, maybe you should run the ball. No, I'm not running the ball. I'm not a running back. I don't take hits. Well, if that's what's going to help you, it's like this. At some point, that team has got to turn around and go, this was a colossal balls up. We should never have done this. Cut our losses and just walk away from before it's too late, because he's got even more accusations now against him as well, which he's got to go through. So, if they had any sense, they'd say, sorry, mate, you're benched for Jameis Winston. As daft as that sounds, I think Winston, that team looked competent with Joe Flacco last year compared to him. So
yeah, very true, very true. And then the last game, just to talk about elsewhere in the league, the Colts 21-16 against our Week 4 opponents, the Bears. Lewis, what's your impression of the Bears so far this year?
They're really tough to make out because they show flashes of being a great team, but then they also show flashes of being an awful team. And I think for me, they're being held back by their coaching staff a little bit. I think if you look at some of the play calling, I don't think they're putting Caleb in the right positions, but then their offensive line has been pretty awful to start the season, and I'm not sure why they haven't learned from their mistakes with Justin Fields, who, like you said, is now gone to the Steelers and looking absolutely brilliant with one of the best defensive lines, and Caleb's having to run around for his life, not having any time to pass. Especially that fourth down call on the goal line for them, I think that play call was absolutely horrific and just gave me no confidence in their play calling and offensive coordinator at all. So I think they have the ability to be a great team. I just can't see it with this coaching staff right now.
And they just also on what Lewis was saying there, he was mentioning about their offensive line. Going into this game on Sunday, Do you think we've got enough on our defensive line / ability to blitz that we can put enough pressure on him and get to Williams?
I do, yeah. My only worry is, much like with Kyler Murray, he's quite mobile and he will sort of give us the slip, and it might be another one of them games where his legs will basically do the work. But my only worry, to be honest, is the fact I think the Bears have finally woke up and they're going to be benching DeAndre Swift for Roshan Johnson. And Swift, he's averaging 1.8 yards a carry, which
Yeah,
is
it was
for a running.
1.5 last week.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I'm worried that they're actually going to start getting a competent running game, and that will probably help them. But we're just gonna have to see what happens, and
Yeah.
hopefully. But I do feel, again, offensively, our defense should hopefully have a field day against their offensive line, especially as they are carrying a couple of injuries as well at the moment. But their defense against our offensive line worries me. The likes of Montez Sweat is going to have a good game against us because he's going to bully somebody like a Logan Bruss and just basically, bully him all game. So that is a worry for me as well.
Just back to what you're saying about Rashawn Johnson and getting a competent running game going. I mean, he was 30 off of 8 carries, but overall, they only managed 63 yards on the ground. So would you expect them to be more pass orientated, which then throws up the question of what we saw in the first half, and then obviously saw against the Cardinals, that we have got a bit of a gap in the defense to contain. It's not just about getting pressure on the quarterback. It's breaking up the plays, preventing them from running their routes, and stopping Williams from actually having a target. As is the risk that going to be actually that this will be another game that, whilst they have somebody that they could maybe get some yards on the ground, that's going to be, they're going to just go to air and just try to pick away at us. For example, I said, well, in fact, no, not last week, the week before, but the Cardinals basically did, where they tore us apart in there.
Yeah, there's always that potential, but you're kind of hoping that maybe this win this week has given the defense a little bit of confidence, just to realise, okay, this is what works for us. We're just going to have, and we'll keep doing this, and hopefully we'll get the second half defense rather than, the first half defense and the Cardinal defense, So, but, we'll just have to wait and see what happens
Lewis,
with that.
Sorry, on you go. Sorry, finish up there.
But I am confident that we can beat this team given what we've seen so far.
Mm-hmm. Lewis, I was just going to ask, who do you see as being the biggest threat for us to have to contain? And that could be on either side of the ball.
Andy mentioned Montez Sweat. I think he's going to be the biggest danger for their defense. I think he can just cause havoc. But saying that, if he's lining up off the edge against Alaric Jackson, then he kept Nick Bosa in check this week. So hopefully he can do the same to him. Offensively, I think you've just got to look at their receiving core. Keenan Allen's meant to be back this week, so they're going to have DJ Moore, Allen, Odunze, and Cole Kmet as well. I'd look at that, and I'd be most worried about Cole Kmet against our linebackers, to be quite honest. I think our secondary could possibly hold up against their receivers, but I would not like to see Rosaboom or Reader up against Cole Kmet in man-to-man coverage, because I think Cole Kmet had 10 catches for a whole bunch of yards last week, and I think he'd probably do the same to our linebacking core, to be honest.
Yeah, he was 97 off of 10, and Aduns was 112 off of 6, and DJ Moore was 78 off of 8. So
yeah, I mean, at the moment, looking at the latest injury report, Allen and Aduns are both questionable, but I think that's basically highly likely that they are going to play some part. I'd be happy if they weren't playing, but I do think we've got to hope that maybe one of them can't get fit, which will help us out. But as Lewis said, Cole Komet against Troy Reader or Christian Roseboom just sends shivers down my spine. It's like, oh God, and even covering, traditionally a linebacker normally covers the running back coming out. I don't fancy them trying to cover a running back either. Dump down plays. It worries me with that as well. That Johnson is just going to one sidestep. He'll miss them and off he goes to the races.
So with that in mind, how do you think we improve? Like, because let's boss, we're stuck with Roseboom and Reader. So what do we need to do to improve them so that we're not sitting here week in, week out worried? Because those are the two guys that, off the first 3 weeks of the season, are being highlighted consistently on that defense as being the big risks. And when you consider, like, and if you remember back last year, it was everyone in the secondary we were talking about, worried about, whereas we're not talking about. I know Travarius White has, he's been a mixed bag really the first 3 weeks, but we're not talking about anyone else in the team. So we're talking about these two guys as being the main weak point. What can we do to improve that situation?
Get the trade nullified and get Ernest Jones back from Tennessee would be the ideal thing. But I think it's just going to maybe have to be, again, some more adjustments on defense. Maybe if that means we have to go with 5 defensive linemen, 1 linebacker and an extra safety maybe on the field, and maybe use the safety as sort of that quasi linebacker on clear passing downs to sort of maybe cover up tight ends and running backs a little bit more, like some teams, have started doing around the league. There's a lot of, Kyle Hamilton players like that who will play in the box on clear passing downs to negate the fact that, their linebackers can't cover players. It might just be, have to be something like that where we are going to have to say, right, whoever, right, you're going to have to go in the middle and play that sort of quasi role. But it's whether Schuler and that would have the confidence or the ability to be able to do that and draw up an effective game plan, but that would be one way, is to take one of them out on clear pass, clear passing downs, second and 8, third and 8, wherever is, more coverage and less, bigger bodies out there.
Okay. Flipping to the other side of the ball, Lewis, what do you want from the offense this week, apart from obviously score points and win the game? What kind of performance are you looking for, and who do you want to highlight from this going into this game?
It's similar to their offense, really. I'd like to get our tight ends going in the passing game a little bit more. I think they're doing brilliantly in running, pass blocking. I'd just like to see a little bit more threat from them through the air. And I'd love to see Jordan Whittington get a few more opportunities as well. I think he caught three passes off his 3 targets last week. Just get him going a little bit more, even if it's just on some jet sweeps and things like that. But I think he could be electric, and with him and Tutu out there, I think anything could happen.
Okay, and then just lastly, guys, predictions. Andy?
17-14 to us.
Lewis?
I'm going to go 27-21. I think Jared Verse finally gets it going, and Byron Young. Both their tackles are questionable right now, so hopefully they can cause a bit of chaos and we'll come out with a win.
Well, good, you're both going with a win. I think this is going to be a tight one again. Actually, I'm going to go 24-20, I think I'll go. Because obviously we're winning this week. I was between saying 24-20 and 31-27. I think it's potentially going to be tight this game, but I'm confident that we'll do enough. Off of what I saw last week, confident enough that we can win the game, but depending on how the receiving core lines up, it could be a lot more higher scoring / closer than I would like. But yeah, no, I see. Hopefully, see us picking up another win and going 2-2.
Yeah, I just see it being a defensive slog myself. I don't know why. It just has that sort of boring defensive slog sort of game where it's just going to be very grindy. Don't know why. That's just that feeling I have this week for it, which is why I've gone for a lower score.
Yep. So moving on, lastly to the fantasy football. How did you guys get on this week in fantasy football?
Shall I just leave now? Because there's clearly no point in me talking about anything of fantasy. It's just, again, much like last year, I just seem to have the injury-ridden team. Whoever I pick seems to be getting injured. So I said off camera to the guys, next year I'm just going to pick the whole 49ers squad. And then if they all end up injured, that's great because that will suit us ideally.
Well, it's a win-win situation. Yeah. So I go for Andy. But how'd you go on this week, Lewis?
I got a win in both my leagues this week. I had Rashi Rice in both of them, who scored 30 points, which pretty much guaranteed me the win. But struggling this week to decide on Kyler Murray or Jaden Daniels on who to start. They're both playing each other and both doing really well. So that's my dilemma for this week.
Excellent. As for myself, right, so first my personal team. How did I go on this week? Oh, I got absolutely annihilated. 169 to 86. But granted, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players out last week. So I just had no hope in hell, pretty much. But I mean, the one that everybody's more interested in, because the prediction was set last week that I'm going to lose my role as head coach for the LA Rams UK team by week 6. We're on 3, so I'm halfway there.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm absolutely gutted. 133.68 to 133.08. But the annoying thing is, there's guys in the bench that would have won the game for me. If I'd had Najee Harris in, for example, would have won the game. I mean, in fact, if I had Dak Prescott instead of Lamar Jackson, would have won the game. So, literally inches. But when I look at it for next week, I mean, this means nothing. I'm now down to lose again. Great. So on for next week is the prediction and the pressure mounts on. Andy, do you fancy another job?
Given my record at the moment, mate, no, I don't think they'll be handing it to me either. I think I'm banned from managing teams at this point. I think it might have to be Tony or someone else takes over as the head coach because, like I say, I'll take over the team, mate, and next week everybody will be injured like on mine, so it's no point in me having it.
So just we're a couple of weeks in now, so just to highlight our divisional leaders. So in the FDP conference, the Super Bills are leading this Matthew Stafford conference division, 3-0, and Team Red Dandy are leading the Andrew Whitworth division in 3-0. The GSOT conference, who are divisional leaders in the Tory Holt division, 3-0 DJ Wright 2000, and tied 2-1 Apocalypse Now in the Kurt Warner division. For Meal Conference, it's Harold Ramsden's are leading the Isaac Bruce division. That's the division that I'm, dead last in. They're 3-0. And in the Marshall Falk division, OBJ's ACL is still missing, folks. He's 2-1 there. And then lastly, in the McVeigh Conference, our divisional leaders so far is Puka Pies in the Cup division and the Croydon Rams 3-0 in the Aaron Donald division. So that's our divisional leaders as of week 3. And that's that, gentlemen. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so.
I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Byron Young and Bo Limmer from this week. I forgot to mention them earlier. I thought those two did really well this week, but other than that, that's all from me.
Excellent. Well, that's been another episode of the Early Rams UK podcast, guys. Andy and Lewis, thanks for joining us, guys. It was great to come on. Bit of positivity after the way the first 2 weeks had gone, eh?
Yeah, great to be back, and a nice bit of positivity after a few rough weeks, and hopefully it can continue into next week, and we can maybe start getting the ball rolling, and maybe
Fingers
get some
crossed.
players back.
Turn this around. Start the
Yeah.
run.
Yep, exactly. Start the run and then start getting healthy at the right time as well, and Super Bowl all the way.
That's it. You heard it here first, folks. But I've been joined by Andy and Lewis. Thanks everyone for listening as usual, and we will catch you guys next week for another episode of the Early Rams UK podcast. Thanks a lot. Take care and see you next time.